Hey guys, we are going live today on Instagram. Usually I go live in my private Facebook group, but today we have a special guest, Tiffany Ballenger of Phillips-Ballenger Associates, and she's going to talk about business and law. And hey guys, hey Natalie. We're a little bit early. I just wanted to get on here. We're going to start around 9. Just waiting on Tiffany. We're going to talk about business entities. We're going to talk about forming an LLC. If you guys are business owners now, definitely hop on. If you are thinking about owning a business someday and aren't sure how to start, this is going to be great for you guys too. So we're going to start in a few minutes. Do you guys have any specific questions for Tiffany today? Let us know in the comments. And after she kind of does her does what most people ask, then you guys will answer questions that you guys have. So we're going to be talking about business and business entities and which one's the right one for you guys based on what your business is and how to actually form the correct entity. And there's Tiffany, yay. She's going to be hopping on live. Let's see. This is fun. This is actually, we're going to have fun. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Let me move this up a little. This is so fun. I've never done this before. Last night was the first time I tested it, so I'm excited.
All right. I'll be your guinea pig.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm. I can hear you.
Awesome.
Hey guys, in the comments, tell us where you're joining from. Love to see where everybody's from while we're waiting for it to get to 9. Looks like Archie is joining from Ireland.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know that this live is going to really apply to Ireland law, but I'm glad you're on here. It might give you some
Irish law. So
say again.
I can't speak on Irish law so much.
Well, it might give him some questions to ask. Some ideas.
Absolutely.
So
Council.
Yeah. We've got Minnesota, Rochester, New York.
Bay Area.
Yeah, Bay Area, California. Tiffany is familiar with that area.
Yes, I am. Going back there this weekend, actually.
Yay.
Miss it very much.
Awesome. What time are we at? My phone does not tell me the time.
It is 8:58, so we've got 2 minutes.
Wait. So maybe we can start. I was going to say, maybe give us a little bit of background of how you decided to become a lawyer.
Well, good question. I didn't know what else to do. Just kidding. My family was wonderful. I grew up only child, and my parents had estate planning, but my father passed away when I was in high school, and their estate planning really not work the way it was supposed to work. So I decided to go to law school with the goal of making sure this didn't happen to other people. So with the goal of helping families is get everything together, properly set up, properly maintained, so that kind of the nightmare I've had in the past wouldn't happen to people.
Yeah. Wow, that's rough. And definitely know that a lot of times people skip over even estate planning and doing a will and properly setting up and protecting their assets because it's just so overwhelming. They're not really sure where to start and what to do. And I've found that teaching photographers and entrepreneurs about just business, that a lot of times they skip over the business basics because of setting up an LLC, of getting a CPA and understanding and creating a tax plan and really building that strong foundation, because a lot of it's like overwhelming and they're just not sure what to do, where to start, who to ask. And so they just skip to where they're making money. And that can be a big mistake.
A very big mistake, and I see that quite a bit because I work with a lot of small businesses or new businesses, or businesses that have been in existence and working and making money and doing great, but they don't have those foundational aspects in place, and then something bad happens. Partners get into a disagreement, or they didn't choose the correct taxation structure out of the gates, so they're paying a lot more in taxes than they need to, that sort of thing. So I always recommend just, of course, do your research, but it is a very large place, and there's a lot of information out there that's not necessarily correct or accurate, and it's kind of hard to tell, especially legally, what applies to you and your situation in your state, et cetera, or in your country. So I recommend that at least sit down just with for a consultation with someone, and you can of the work yourself. Maybe you don't need to hire full-blown counsel or a CPA right out of the gates, but maybe it makes sense to at least get a game plan together at first.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I'm leading a group of photographers through, and we've been talking about, LLCs and CPAs and finding those things. And they keep asking me questions, and I'm like, look, I can't give you an answer. I'm not licensed to tell you. But the thing is each person is individual. What your goals are for your family, for your business. Am I going?
You just broke up a little bit, but you're okay.
Okay. I might go grab my earphones. It might be better. But basically, what was I even saying? I can't even remember. Oh, like asking me questions. And I'm like, everybody's situation is very individual and unique as far as like what their goals are for their business, what their goals are for their family. Maybe, a single person, their goal is to, save for retirement or just travel, have a travel budget. And whereas a family, maybe they're saving money for their kids' college or something like that. And so how you structure everything and how, especially like taxes and your CPA and all of those things, there's so many options that you don't know of that unless you ask a professional, then you're going to be missing out on those things.
And it's difficult too, because every situation is different in so much that if you put together an LLC for a simple photography business, right, with one owner or partner or member, that should be pretty simple. But it's going to depend on structure. Is very much going to depend on what else you have going. Do you have any other businesses? Are you married or single with children? What stage in your career are you? Are you a younger person just starting out, or are you more established? Do you have other assets that you're concerned about protecting? That sort of thing. So that's kind of the struggle that I see with kind of the one size fits all type of planning that you get like online or LegalZoom. It's not taking a lot of those other factors into consideration, although legal has its time and its place as well.
Awesome. So let's say I'm a beginner photographer and I want to create an income from my passion. So I want to do it as a business. Right. Like, what should I be thinking about at this moment?
The first thing to think about is, probably three considerations. Number one, asset protection. Basically, you want to separate the business itself from you as a person, because you as a person have a unique risk of lawsuit because you walk down the street and drive a car and do all of the things you do in life. Mm-hmm. But your business also has a risk of suit because you could get into a contract dispute with a client. Especially if you have clients, if you have a studio or a home studio, especially you have clients in your home, somebody slips and falls, sues you, etc. You want to separate those two things from one another so that if you get sued personally, like in a car accident, your business isn't affected, and vice versa. And then the second consideration that I see a lot, especially starting out with, is getting the correct structure in place for tax reasons. Mm-hmm. Because you don't want to give more money to the government than you need to or than you're obligated to. But a lot of the time, if you are not properly set up and formed via an entity like an LLC, you're going to be leaving deductions that you otherwise could get on the table.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen that a lot.
Yeah, me too. It's probably the number one thing I see.
Awesome.
I guess third would be accounting for the tax. Getting yourself set up properly with like QuickBooks or some sort of bookkeeping software or a bookkeeper, maybe if you're new to accounting, so that you are properly itemizing deductions, capturing your income, and so you can see how your business is actually doing. Get a false sense of, oh, well, I made $2,000 this week, but you didn't really take into account that you spent $3,000 last week. And
right. That's
a little delusional. And I know that as a small business owner myself, I'm like, where did all the money go?
Right. So, no, I've been there for sure.
Thought we had more than this. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So next step, I know I need to protect my business. As a photographer or as a business owner, what is the next step after that? Do I file online? Do I have to pay an attorney? Like, what's the difference? Because I know I've searched for LLC online when we first started our business many years ago. And, they have those little things or businesses online that will file for you. And it's like $199 or like it's really, really cheap or $99. Like, what should I do that, or what's the difference in actually having a lawyer do it?
Yeah, that's a great question. You can look into the do-it-yourself options, especially if you're first starting out, where I would really hazard two hazards there. Number one, when you see the $99 business formation or $299 or whatever, it's typically not including filing fees with the state. So, for instance, in Nevada, when you form an LLC or a corporation, you form it with Nevada's Secretary of State. Each state is a little different. Same in California. Most states, it's a Secretary of State. Sometimes it's like the Division of Corporations or Division of Business Entities or whatever. So there are filing fees that are incurred, and that number never includes that. So you're getting like a false deal there. For instance, in Nevada, it's $425. So even if you got the $199 deal, you'd be out the door at $625. Another thing is if you have any partners, you really should probably get legal advice because things get tricky. And most business partners go into it and they're friends and they have a pretty general conversation over drinks or something like that. And everybody's in agreement, but there are like 75 things that you probably didn't talk about. And those what if scenarios do pop up, and then businesses are ruined, friendships are ruined, it can be terrible. So definitely recommend sitting down with an attorney that is well-versed in business formation and creation of businesses when there's multiple partners. So you don't want to like call your local personal injury lawyer because that'll pretty much just be like going on LegalZoom, right? And get advice there. Also, probably, sorry, I said two, but three. Third scenario is if you have other types of assets, significant assets, or other types of businesses, you really want to make sure that any new business is incorporated into your overall plan and that it is properly separated out from anything else you have.
So what would be an example of that? Like stocks, or like what would be an example of big assets that maybe like the everyday person would have?
A house.
Okay.
Rental properties, other businesses, like liquid assets like stocks, investment accounts. Things that I don't really necessarily worry about are retirement funds.
Okay.
So money that you have in a 401k is usually protected from creditors, has natural asset protection. And things like annuities and life insurance, I'm not necessarily concerned about, but other types of assets are really...
Well, house is a big one. That's one that everybody has.
That's a big one. And that's typically, for most Americans, it's the largest part of their estate. and the largest part of their savings, if you will. So every state has different laws with regards to your own primary house, your home, and those are called homestead laws. So you can get what I call natural asset protection, which means it's given to us by the state or federal law, like retirement plans have natural asset protection. Your home might have natural asset protection, but each state has a different law. And there's different requirements. Like here in Nevada, you have to file a homestead declaration form, and it protects up to $550,000 worth of equity in your home. In California, it's only like $75,000, which obviously makes no sense, right? California's property values are higher, but that's what we have. Florida's almost unlimited. Texas is really generous. So it depends on the state.
Yeah. So it's really important then probably to go ahead and spend that money, go in with a lawyer and have them file your LLC, because if you try to do it yourself, I will actually give you an example. We did the $99 or $199 online. And when we actually went into a lawyer, because we were buying real estate and we were buying rental properties, they didn't file everything. Like we were missing pieces of what we needed to actually be protected. And so we found out the hard way. At least it didn't hurt us, but we did find out that doing that by filing online, it actually wasn't correct. And so if something had happened, we might have not had the protection of that LLC because we didn't have the entirety of it filed properly. So
I do that a lot with the online services, because you like naturally choose, I know I do when I'm online, I naturally choose the cheapest option. But usually that cheapest option forms the company, but you're also required, and each state is different, to file an initial list right after you form the company. And like there's a small window to do that. After you miss that window, you're penalized with fees, and then it can go into default, and it's a mess. So sometimes it does more harm than good.
Yeah, so good rule of thumb, even though it might feel like a big expense, is go ahead and go with a lawyer and get your LLC or your business entity. We haven't even talked about that yet. Your business entity filed properly. That way you know which business entity you need, and also making sure that you have everything that needs to be done with it. Because in the end, if you try to do the cheap one, you're probably going to find out that it's going to cost you more, and it could possibly cost you way more if something happens. So what kind of business entities are there, and like which ones would I need like as a photographer?
So the classic types of business entities are corporations. So there are C Corps. Those are like giant, big Fortune 500 companies. So just don't know those. S Corps. So those are small business corporations. LLCs, partnerships, and then sole proprietorship, which is not really a business. But a lot of people say you can file in different states as a sole proprietorship, but it's completely worthless. Basically, it does no good in terms of protecting you from lawsuits. It doesn't do any good in terms of maintaining your trademark or intellectual property. So that's don't waste me on that.
Quick question on that. I actually had two people in this group that I'm leading, and their CPA actually told them that they didn't need an LLC and to be a sole proprietor because they could file with their spouse, and that would help alleviate their personal tax things. But we did discuss that they're left open to, suit. And I loved that you brought up the personal, because I didn't even think about it that way. I've always thought about protecting your personal, if someone sues your business, protecting your personal, like protecting your house, your family, your husband's income. Like they can't go after any of that if you have a business entity. But I actually didn't occur to me that if you're in a car accident and someone tries to sue you, that as a sole proprietor that doesn't have a business entity, they can actually sue your business and your business assets and your business income as well.
Yeah, it's such a bad deal, right? I look at it as inside and outside, and then there's like sideways liability. And you never know where the threat is going to come from. So it's so important that you take a look everything. That's why I basically like put things in different baskets. So we want to put personal stuff here, business one here, if I have a rental over here, that sort of thing. So that if anything happens in any of those in your entire estate, you have separation within the estate itself, which is crazy important.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay. So back to like business entities and kind of which one, how do we know which one is the right fit?
So, okay, 9.5 times out of 10, you're going to go LLC. And go into a lawyer and they tell you to do something else. Send me an email because basically LLCs are, I love them because they're super flexible. So an LLC, you can choose your taxation, which is great. So you can tax an LLC in 4 ways. You can tax it as a disregarded or like a flow through entity. You can tax it as a partnership if you have a partner. So that's when you get K1s and stuff, as an S Corp or as a C Corp. So, and then you can change the taxation. So that's lovely.
There's flexibility there. Yeah. And an LLC, for anybody that doesn't know, is a limited liability company.
Yes. I got ahead of myself there. Yes.
No,
limited.
You're good.
So it's basically obviously limiting your liability. And so there are the different roles in an LLC are the manager, obviously whoever manages the company, and then the members. That's another word for owner of a company. And you can have multiple members, so multiple owners, or just one, if it's just your own business. But it's still important. I see a lot of people go into their CPA, and especially right in the middle of tax season, and their CPA says, "Oh, you should form an LLC, but you're a single member. You're the only owner, so you don't need to do an operating agreement or anything like that." There's a big difference between CPA advice, tax advice, which is incredibly important, don't get me wrong, and attorney advice, because I have a very different viewpoint as to that, because I'm concerned with protecting your assets, protecting a business, protecting you from other liabilities, whereas typically a CPA is mostly concerned with the tax structure only. So that's why I know it's like, how many professionals am I going to have to hire?
Right. But, to get it right, right?
Right. And I mean, 9 times out of 10, I can typically tell someone this is how you should probably elect your taxation, but you should double check with your CPA, because I'm not a CPA. I don't do taxes or anything like that.
Right.
But, the good thing with the taxes is that you can change that, right? You can change the taxation. The bad thing is if you don't do your operating agreement, which is basically your rule book for the company, you don't have the proper documents, and then you get sued, whether or not that LLC would hold up in the lawsuit and protect you could be, it could be finished. Yeah. Because the judge could say, well, this company is just a sham. It's not a real entity. You didn't do all the proper stuff that you're supposed to do.
Right. I had a question a second ago talking about, well, we have one up here. So can you upgrade from a sole proprietor? Oh, I know what it was. Let me hold on just a second on that question. My question was, a lot of people wait until tax season to try to save taxes. And the problem with that is when tax season comes around, like 2018, and you're filing for 2017, is it too late to file an LLC and get the benefits of an LLC? Or do you know, am I in? Because I think that you're...
Technically, yes.
Okay.
I mean, because typically when you form an LLC, you're forming it with the state, right? Then we're also going to the IRS and requesting an EIN, which is an employer identification, which is like a security number for your company. So if you apply for that EIN in March of 2018 and you're trying to use that for expenses from 2017, that's really not going to last much. So it's important. I mean, it's better to do something now
than wait
together. And then you can talk to your tax advisor as to as whether or not you can possibly, like if you have been very diligent about keeping business expenses separate from your personal expenses, whether or not you can kind of sweep those in as pre-business formation expenses. Some CPAs are a little bit more liberal and allow for that. And there's
or know how to do it. Yeah,
exactly. You have to do it properly. Don't try to do that on your own.
Yeah, we all, I definitely talk about CPAs and how important it is to actually get one that specializes in business and that like really knows what they're doing, because just a normal, CPA is great, but unless they really know all of the aspects of a business, deductions that they can do, and if they really specialize in business, they're probably going to know a lot more. So let's go back to this question of, can you upgrade from a sole proprietor to an LLC? I've already filed a doing business as a sole proprietor and just got that back from the county.
And what state is she in? You could reply. So that's going to depend on the state where the company was formed. So once again, a sole proprietorship is not really protecting you in any way because it is not a separate legal entity from oneself. And so typically in Nevada, for instance, you could go on and do a change request with the Secretary of State and change from sole proprietor to LLC. Of course, there's going to be Secretary of State fees. Mm-hmm. And then you filed a DBA as a sole proprietor. So that's a really important. A DBA is a doing business as. So like say,
I have a good example, actually.
Please do. Go.
Yes. I've been, like I said, we've been working with photographers, and a lot of times they'll have, let's say, La Marie Photography. And that's what their LLC is, or that's what their business name is, what they have their business licenses under and stuff like that. And then I teach them how to separate out each genre just for marketing purposes online. So they might have La Marie newborn photography, or La Marie family photography, or La Marie boudoir photography. And so they have 3 different business names that they buy the domain for, but those would be doing business as underneath their main business name, correct?
Perfect. Yeah, that's a great example. So, for instance, if you're a sole proprietor and you're La Marie, and that's your legal name, and you go to your county and you can file a DBA as La Marie Photography, right? Mm-hmm. But the DBA is it's just a name reservation with that specific county. So it's not it's not protecting you from lawsuits. Right. And it's also not reserving anything in terms of your intellectual property. It's not reserving that name if anybody else wants to use it, usually in that county or nationwide.
Gotcha. So you need to actually file your LLC in the name that you want. And then if you're doing business as those different entities, mm-hmm. I mean, if you have the domain, you should be fine, I think. But should you file, would it be trademark?
Well, yeah, that's intellectual property, and we could do a whole other
call on that. Okay.
So intellectual property is super important because you're branding yourself and you're building your brand, right? Mm-hmm. And if you don't have, and your DBA is not going to do anything to help. Okay. Of course, you want to purchase your domains so that you have them and they're available to you, but that's not going to reserve your intellectual property. So you actually have to file for a trademark or a name reservation and that's federal law, mm-hmm. To protect it nationwide. I had a client who built this wonderful business, worked super hard, and they had a specific name. Let's just call it like Grape Juice LLC, and they were doing great and killing it. And then 5 years down the road, found out that somebody else actually owned the grape juice trademark, and they basically were shaking them down for its use because they were these other people were the legal owners. They had no interest in doing the business. They'd never done anything, but they had reserved that name and gone through the proper trademarking steps, etc. So legally, my clients had to end up ponying up a ton of money because it was a larger business at that point. they didn't want to go through a rebranding and change the name, so they had to like buy it from the other people.
Yeah. So I mean, the two options is either buy them out if you have the money, or B, you have to cease and desist. Correct?
Right. You have to stop that name. You have to change everything. You have to change all of your marketing materials, your website, your business cards.
So it's really important to actually get those trademarks on your name and on your intellectual property, like you said. I'm going to hop back just a little bit. Maisha asked, what is an operating agreement and should it be drafted by an attorney?
All right. So an operating agreement is basically the rule book for an LLC. So it lays out who the owners are, who the managers are, how we conduct business, etc. Sorry, I have a cold.
You're good. It's allergies. I have the same thing. I lost my voice halfway through yesterday.
Right.
So I sound like a heavy smoker.
Yes. So, sorry.
Oh, good.
So, if you think of a corporate bylaws, same thing, but for an LLC.
Gotcha. Awesome. So we talk about LLCs. Most photographers probably need an LLC. It's better to actually just pay the money to have a lawyer do it. That way you're making sure you're getting everything filed properly, because trying to do it on your own typically is like you end up paying more because it doesn't get everything doesn't get done. It's just a lot less headache to have somebody who knows what they're doing do it. So that's great about LLCs. What are questions that you get what are the most common questions?
Probably with regard, I mean, we've gone over a lot of them.
Okay.
What kind of business do I need? Corporation versus LLC? Do I need to get it professionally done? Of course, as a lawyer, I'm always going to encourage you to get your own legal advice and get proper legal advice. The most important thing, I think, even if you go to a lawyer, not every lawyer is well versed in asset protection, entity selection, business formation, and planning, right? So you want somebody that really knows their stuff, and their practice is primarily composed of things like that. So you don't want to go to a litigator, for instance. A litigator is somebody that does like lawsuits and sues people. I don't do any of that. All I do is transactional work, which is basically forming businesses, forming estate plans for people. Because, I mean, everything's so specialized. Like, you wouldn't go to a heart surgeon if you had, if you stubbed your toe. So, vice versa.
So quick question there then. If I need to file an LLC and I need to find a lawyer, what's the best way to find a lawyer that's going to be good for filing an LLC?
I would go, some resources are avvo.com. You can search by your city, state, zip code, and practice area. And many lawyers will show like a pie chart with their practice areas, how much of what they do. And then you can also see their client testimonials on there. And then avvo.com also shows if there's been any instances of professional misconduct for the professional. So like if they got a complaint with their state bar, they got in trouble, or they stole their client's money, you'd see that. Otherwise, you can always search locally, like you can call your state bar. Sometimes they will have a referral service. Like in Nevada, it's not awesome. Not like that specific in terms of practice area. Asking your other professionals like your CPA or your financial advisor, if you have someone, your banker, or other business owners that you know in the community is always helpful.
That's exactly the number one thing we recommend is if you know a business, somebody who has a business and they've been in business for a while, ask them who their lawyer is or ask them for recommendations for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most of my clients come from my other clients. So referrals in the community, which is wonderful and super helpful. But I do get a fair amount of leads, through the internet. Always look for somebody that has client reviews or testimonials. always search for their bar record, their membership record, just to make sure that you're hiring somebody that's in good standing and is like actually a lawyer, right? You may want to see how many years they've been in practice. If they've only been in practice for a year and they don't have like a supervising lawyer, you probably want to have somebody with a little bit more experience if you're making that investment. And I would say the most important thing is just look at their website and see what their practice areas are. If they have 75 different practice areas, they're not going to be well focused in probably any of those, right?
Yeah. So what would be the area if they specialize in LLC? Is that kind of what you do, like the asset protection? Is that what we should be looking for, or?
So keywords to search for are like business formation, LLC formation, entity formation. Look to see if the lawyer or the firm is a commercial registered agent in your state. You can email me if you want to know how to do that. That's typically a firm or a lawyer that does a lot of LLC work.
Okay. Awesome. We had a question. How much does it cost? Should it cost for a lawyer to file an LLC?
It depends on the type of company and the state that you're in, because like I said before, those filing fees are going to vary by state. Typically it's around, our LLC formation starts at like $1,500, and it gets more expensive the more complicated it gets. So if you have multiple partners and we're doing like a lot of customizations of the operating agreement, it could be really expensive, right? But typically it's on the lower end if it's just a new company, pretty simple, one member or owner, and you're not like highly customizing an operating agreement.
Yeah. And then refiling every year is a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Like I believe in Nevada, it's a little bit more expensive since we don't have state income tax.
Right.
They tend to get you when you're filing your LLC and when you're refiling and your business license this year. So in other states, I know it's like pretty cheap. It's like $150 maybe dollars a year, sometimes even cheaper than that to renew your LLC once you have it. But so yes, that initial creation is a little bit like expensive, but if you plan on making money, like you need to protect it.
A lot, right? Especially when you're first starting your business and you're watching every penny. But don't be penny wise and pound foolish either. There are so many problems that can come out of not having, like, it's like trying to build a house and you like didn't put a foundation in and you just built it on dirt. And so it's this beautiful, gorgeous house and it's absolutely crumbling and falling down. So invest early. And then, like, for instance, I take a lot of payment plans for clients that are
awesome.
News, because I know that money is tight as they're getting started. And I'm cognizant of that. Your annual fees, again, that's going to be less than the initial formation. And you want to also ask the lawyer what they do, what is included in the LLC fee. You want to make sure that they're not only forming the company with the Secretary of State or whatever it is in your state, but they're drafting the operating agreement, membership certificates, which shows the ownership, applying for your EIN.
Articles of organization, is that the same thing as the operating agreement?
No, articles of organization are actually what are filed with the state to form the company.
Perfect.
Your initial list is typically, they're called something a little different in many other states, but articles of organization and initial list are kind of
same. Okay.
States, in Nevada, you have to have a state business license, which is that fun fee, but whatever it is.
We don't pay income tax.
And remember, almost all of that expense is a write-off, tax.
Exactly. So, my suggestion for photographers is wait on that $1,500 lens that you really want. If you're going to be in business, like instead of investing it into a whole bunch of equipment, you want to make sure that your business foundation is set. And I think a lot of times when they think about setting up a business, they think about marketing, they think about forming their LLC. They're like, that's so expensive, but yet they're going and spending, $3,000 on a camera and $1,500 on a lens. And to them, they see the value in that. And so they just kind of skip over the other parts, but it's just about not understanding the value of having that strong, business foundation and how that's really going to be important moving forward. So
that's a great example. Like, I'm not a photographer and I can't appreciate that. Like, that sounds like a crazy amount to spend on a lens for me, right? And so, it does put things into perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But you really, I can't underestimate the importance of a proper foundation. And if you get that done at the get-go, you're going to be so much better off, and it's probably going to easily pay for itself anyway in tax savings. So that's the other consideration.
Yeah, it's a tax write-off. It's a business expense. And I loved the point that you brought out. When you're looking for a lawyer, ask if they have payment plans, because that's a great question to ask, especially if you're just starting out and you're like, wow, where am I going to come up with $1,500 to fund my business on top of everything else that I'm, looking at spending?
I mean, a lot of attorneys do nowadays, especially you probably want to work with a smaller firm in terms of not only cost savings, but usually smaller firms, like I own my firm, have more flexibility to work with clients on payment structures and stuff. And, they don't have the man telling them exactly how they have to do.
It's a little more personal, I think. And also, like, a small business, like if you have a really big firm, I'm sure their top clients are huge businesses, and that's kind of their priority because that's where, they make their money.
And they also, typically if you're an associate working in a large firm, you're not going to have a lot of small business experience yourself because you're an employee and you're going in there. Not that you don't have the legal knowledge, but you don't necessarily have, like, I learn a lot of what I tell my clients is not like legal advice. It is practical advice that I ran up and learned the hard way by starting your
own business. Yeah.
So it's like all the practical little pointers here and there. So that can be really important.
That's a huge advantage. Like if you're a new business owner, you sit down with a lawyer and they give you even like 3 things to avoid. Thank you.
Thank you for saving me 10 hours and like a night full of tears.
Right.
So the other thing to ask, how does the lawyer charge? Do they charge by the hour, or are they charging you a flat fee? I think it's crazy if a lawyer is charging by the hour for a simple LLC formation. That seems kind of pretty old school to me because, look, I know how much time is going to be involved in filing everything and drafting everything and meeting with the client. So I should be able to fix that fee for them and tell them how much it's going to cost so that you can budget accordingly and you're not like slammed with a surprise hourly bill.
Yeah. Awesome. The other question, it doesn't really quite have to do with LLC, that came up, somebody asked, is to be legally binding, do contracts have to be drawn up by a lawyer?
No, absolutely not. Usually it helps because once again, like, do what you do and do it well, but don't try to do everybody else's job, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I am the worst with this. Like, I go on WebMD and I think that I'm a doctor and I know I'm not, and I diagnose like 18 things, right? But you are not going to have the knowledge, most likely, to understand what should be in that contract and what pitfalls you want to watch out for. Mm-hmm. The other point is, if the other party has a lawyer, you absolutely. But lots of people in business will put together a simple contract between mm-hmm. 2 parties that aren't represented by lawyers, and everything's fine, and they get a form off the internet and it works. Mm-hmm. Typically it works when everybody lives up to their end of the bargain. If one of those people start to go sideways, that's when we're seeing a lot of issues, and when we see contract problems come up because something wasn't in the contract, or it wasn't specifically stated, or it didn't follow the proper law or whatever.
Yeah, awesome. And a lot of times, and two, you want to make sure, I think that you, even if you draw up your own contract, you should have a lawyer look over it in the sense of you may be missing certain things that apply just to your state or your city that are different, maybe from the person that you downloaded the contract from, or, you know, they may not have something in there that's super important, or you might be missing like one little line or phrase that would protect you, but you didn't know about it.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. And I mean, it's like a very wide world of legal complexities. So if it's a contract that is a big deal, like a large investment or a lot of liability, I would certainly have it looked at.
Okay, awesome. And what makes a contract legally binding?
Basically, parties agree to a certain set of facts, and it's signed by both parties. Okay. Basically, and there's what's called an exchange of consideration. So I'm doing something for you, you're doing something for me. Yeah. Very basically, but there's a lot else. There's a lot of
other things that go in there. Yeah. Okay. So lastly, thank you guys for hanging out with us. You gave us so much like amazing information, Tiffany. Fun. Yes, I love it. And it's like awesome. Like this information is so good. But lastly, like I know that Nevada and there's some other states that don't have income tax, and there are businesses that, let's say you live in, let's say Oklahoma or whatever, and you form your LLC in Nevada so that the LLC can have that advantage of no tax, no income tax. Is that something that as photographers we might want to look into, filing in one of those states or even with you? Or, you know, should we worry about that or should we not?
Yeah, so state income tax depends on where the income is earned.
Okay.
So if you're a photographer and say you're based in a state like California with state income tax, but your clients are all over the country, then maybe you want to form your entity in Nevada or another state without income tax, because at least when you go to a state without income tax and you're shooting, then you're not having that taxable situation as a California resident. But you're not going to, like, if you are a California resident and your clients in your studio are in California, all of your work is occurring in California, and you're not going to get around the income tax because that work is actually in California, regardless of where your business is formed.
Yeah, good to know. Awesome. So if you guys are in Nevada and you do need an LLC, we will give you Tiffany's information so that you can.
Questions.
Yeah.
Or if you need help finding someone, Nevada is the best state in terms of asset protection. Our LLC laws here are the best in the nation in terms of what they protect and how they protect you. But if asset protection is not your primary concern, and it's more of a small business, it may make sense to form it in the state where you live. So if you have any other questions on that, I'm happy to answer those.
Yeah. If you guys have any questions, we're going to hang on here for like one more minute. Go ahead and type them in. But otherwise, this has been so much valuable information. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And fun. I hope great questions from everybody. And hope that we were helpful. And
and we will have to come back maybe and do another one on asset protection and like maybe get a little bit deeper into that, because I think a lot of people who are in business, maybe they have an LLC and maybe they're kind of in the middle of their business. Maybe they haven't considered asset protection and kind of how to do that and what to look for sure.
Right. I see a question here. What qualifies as doing business in Nevada if I'm in California? Can I just have one session in Nevada? No. So, I mean, that one session would count as income earned in Nevada, but all your just doing that one session, all of your other sessions that are occurring in California
doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
A lot of people, especially in California, will try to claim Nevada residency. We see that a lot because we don't have state income tax. We don't have corporate tax. But the California state of California really cracks down on that.
Oh, they do. I've heard of that.
Crazy. So don't try to, you really have to actually physically be here for more than half the year to claim Nevada residency.
Yeah. So perfect. Thank you so much for your time, Tiffany. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you guys.
Yeah. And everybody have a great day.
All right.
All right. Bye.